There's news tonight in the long, sad, strange, salacious story of President Obama's former Senate seat. The news comes to us from our unofficial Bureau of Lame Excuses in Springfield, Illinois, where the president's successor in the Senate, Roland Burris, today gave increasingly awkward answers to questions about his starring role in a newly released federally wiretapped phone call. Here's the context here. First, Senator Barack Obama became President Barack Obama. That meant his Senate seat became vacant. His vacant Senate seat appeared to be for sale when Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich was caught on a federal wiretap saying things like this about it.
I've got this thing and it's golden. And, I'm not just giving it up for nothing. I'm not going to do it. And I can always use it. I can parachute me there.
That characterization, among other things, got Governor F. Word both arrested and thoroughly denounced by U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald.
Governor Blagojevich has been arrested in the middle of what we can only describe as a political corruption crime spree. The conduct would make Lincoln roll over in his grave.
Before the Illinois legislature could boot Governor Blagojevich out of office, before his actual indictment, Rod Blagojevich defied everyone in politics and filled that Senate seat that he was being accused of trying to sell. The lucky winner was Roland Burris, a man who has since spent quite a lot of time defending himself from charges that he got that seat because he was willing to pay for it. That's a case that got way more difficult to make this week, that defense, when a judge approved the release of a wiretapped phone call between Mr. Burris and Governor Blagojevich's brother. For example, when he testified in front of the Illinois House Impeachment Committee in January, Mr. Burris was asked specifically whether he had spoken to anyone on Governor Blagojevich's staff, any lobbyists or Blagojevich family members about the vacant Senate seat. Mr. Burris said he had spoken with one Blagojevich staffer. Then by February, that story evolved. Burris filed an affidavit saying that Mr. Blagojevich's brother Robert had in fact called him 3 times asking for fundraising support. But, he said at the time, he didn't do any actual fundraising. He didn't even offer to.
Rod Blagojevich reached out to me in 3 separate phone calls to ask for assistance raising money for his brother, then Governor Blagojevich. A fact that I fully disclosed in my affidavit to the impeachment committee. I made it very clear to him that I would not contribute, that it would be inappropriate and a major conflict because I had expressed an interest in the Senate seat.
I made it very clear to him that I would not contribute. This is the part where we go to the tape.
I'm now trying to figure out what the hell the best thing to do. I know I could give him a check myself.
Yeah.
And my law partner, we were going to try to do something at the law firm. I might be able to do this in the name of Tim Wright.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because Tim is not looking for an appointment, okay?
Okay.
So either Mr. Burris made it very clear that he would not contribute to Governor Blagojevich's campaign, or he offered to write Mr. Blagojevich a check, which is what he's on tape telling the former governor's brother. Senator Burris is now being investigated by the Senate Ethics Committee. And there's an investigation underway in Springfield, Illinois, as to whether or not he perjured himself during his January testimony to the impeachment committee in the state legislature. Now he has offered up 2 lines of reasoning for the discrepancies in this story. One line of reasoning is that it's not his fault if he was less than candid with the impeachment committee. It is not upon a person who is testifying to go out of his way on anything. It is the person who has to ask the questions. So says Senator Burris. I see. His second explanation is that while he may have discussed donations, he never intended to actually make any. When he sounded like he was going to make them, he was just trying to placate Governor Blagojevich's brother on that phone call. Joining us now is Scott Mendeloff, a former federal prosecutor in Chicago. Mr. Mendeloff, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
More than my pleasure, Rachel.
What do you make of Senator Burris's argument that if he wasn't totally honest with the impeachment panel, it's their fault because they didn't ask the right questions?
Well, as a legal matter, that's probably true. If you're going to try to indict somebody for perjury, the way that the law works is you look very, very carefully at the precise question asked to see whether or not the answer is truthful or not. But in this circumstance, based on what I've just heard in your recitation, I don't think that's a very good defense.
Well, these are the kinds of arguments that don't typically make good political cover. The nobody asked me excuse, right? And also the it was all a ruse defense. I may have sounded like I was offering money, but I was just trying to make that guy think that, and I wasn't really ever going to do it. So politically, we can already tell what the impact of these things is going to be. Legally, though, do these sort of things matter, or do we need to get into much more technical back and forth before we start talking about his legal culpability?
Well, the latter seems to me to be the one where he's really got exposure, because if you look at the transcript, and I did this afternoon in anticipation of coming into your program, it's pretty clear that he is absolutely committing to not only give money himself, but get money from other people. And what's more, if this is the third of 3 conversations about this, it's Roland at the beginning who starts with, gee, I really want to take Obama's seat. So I don't know how he's going to explain that away.
He mentions in the tapes that we've got, he mentions wanting that seat, I think at least about 10 times, in the context of a discussion that is otherwise about giving Blagojevich money. It almost seems to me, and again, I'm not a lawyer, and so I don't know exactly how these things are prosecuted, but that fact alone, the fact that you would raise the Senate seat 10 times in a discussion that's otherwise about fundraising, is almost enough to prove quid pro quo.
Yeah, I don't think he's got much exposure on a bribery-related charge, because he comes right out and says over and over again that he doesn't want to. There's enough in there to make it very difficult for him to be able to be prosecuted on the idea that he wanted to pay off for the seat. He covers himself on that.
Well, he says he doesn't want to be seen to be paying for the seat.
Right, and then he doesn't pay.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, he doesn't pay, but in the tape he says that he will pay by December 15th. Well, the governor got charged on December 9th, so we'll never know.
In terms of the perjury inquiry, what exactly would need to be proved about Mr. Burris and his testimony and his other statements in order to really legally put him on the hook for perjury?
The key point, obviously we know perjury involves a knowing false statement. But the real key legal technicality that has to be met is something called materiality. In other words, the false statement has to be something that's significant. It can't be just an offhand comment. Now, it's hard to call any of the things that we've talked about offhand comments.
Former federal prosecutor Scott Mendeloff, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight and helping us sort this stuff out. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.